Hey now, my name is Nick from Board Game Brawl, and today we're going to take a look at a game called Billionaire Banshee from Stephen Bailey. Now, this is a game that is currently on Kickstarter seeking funding. This is not a paid preview. I'm just doing a little freebie review, so you're going to have my honest opinion of what the game is like. And basically, this is a party game, and I compare it to Say Anything mixed with Cards Against Humanity. So the premise is that each round, a player is going to draw a quirk card and a perk card, and they're going to describe the potential life mate, love of your life, that you're going to want to go out on a date with. The other players have to decide whether you actually do want to go on a date with this person, taking the good with the bad. Whoever guesses correctly gets to score points. So that's kind of that same mechanism from Say Anything, where the people try to guess whatever your preferred answer is, and it also has all the bodiness and sort of raunchiness of Cards Against Humanity. And so, disclaimer, during my overview I'll probably show you a few cards that might be considered offensive, so if you don't like that, you should probably just skip that part and go straight to my final opinion. But in any case, let's go ahead and do that overview right now. I'll just show you a little bit about the game, then we're going to come back and I'll tell you my final opinion. Alright, I'm just going to give you a brief overview of Billionaire Banshee. Now, the thing I need to stress here is that this is a prototype copy of the game. The game is currently on Kickstarter seeking funding, so if and when it meets its funding goal and the game is produced, it may be different than the version that you're seeing now. Most certainly there will be more cards. It's possible that some of the rules will change as well, so just bear that in mind and take it with a grain of salt that the final product may be different. Now, the theme of Billionaire Banshee is that you are trying to find your soulmate. You want to go out on a date with someone who could be the one, and this is a party game for up to 10 players, and the rest of the group is going to try to guess who you're going to go on a date with, or who you're willing to go out on a date with. That's going to change every round. The person who is the, let's call them the judge just for simplicity's sake, is going to go clockwise around the table. So you'll choose one person to start, and then every other person is going to get a shot at going at as well, depending on to the number of points that you want to play with. Now, the game does not have a hard and set point value that you go off of. In fact, the game doesn't come with any kind of point chip, so you have to find some way to keep score as well. Perhaps the final version will. But basically what's going to happen is you have a perk card and a quirk card. Together, they're going to describe the person that you are potentially going to go on a date with, so that when you're the judge, you're going to draw one of each of those. You're going to read them out loud to the rest of the players, and each of the players has a deny and date card. The backs are the same. So when you read both of those cards out loud, you as the judge are going to choose one of these and lock it in, meaning that you're either willing to go out on the date with that person or not willing to go out on the date. All the other players at the table are also going to choose one of these cards and try to guess which one you chose. Is the judge willing to date that person? Is the judge not going to date that person? Lock it in. Once everyone's locked in, everyone flips over, and any of the other players who guessed correctly what the judge actually chose is going to get a point. And like I said, you'll just find some way to keep track of points. There's also an extra little element in that if you have a point already, once the judge reads the perk card, you always read the perk card first, you may bet one of your points. If you bet one of your points, you're also going to take one of their date or deny cards and lock in your choice before the judge gets to look at the quirk card and read it out loud. So basically, you're gambling based on what the perk card says in and of itself, and gambling that the judge is going to be okay with whatever the quirk is. And if you're right, you get an extra point, and you get to keep the point that you bet. So it's just a way to possibly get ahead, or to get ahead if you've fallen behind the other players. But really, this isn't much of a competitive game. It's more about the experience and having fun, things like that. Now, you're probably dying to know what the perk cards and quirk cards actually said. So, as the names imply, perks are generally good things, although not necessarily. A lot of it is up to perception. And quirks are generally bad things, although, again, it's all about perception and what's good or bad to you. And this game is mostly about trying to play to the judge and figuring out what the judge thinks is a bad thing or a good thing, and vice versa. Now, I don't necessarily agree with this design decision, but on the backs of the cards, you have different pictures. There's 3 different types of pictures. Each deck has the same pictures on each of the backs of their cards. If you have the cards that have these little businessman chibi pixel guys, these are cards that are based more in reality, so the events and circumstances on them could actually happen in real life. The unicorn ones, as you might guess, are more fantasy, they're more unrealistic, probably not ever going to be really possible in real life. And the BDSM bear, the Village People bear, is cards that are of a mature flavor. So if you don't want to play with any of these particular types of cards, especially the adult ones, you would take these out ahead of time and not play with them. With the prototype copy, it's not really an option because there's not a lot of cards, but when there's a lot of cards in the game, you may not want to play with a certain type or multiple types of cards and keep it more realistic, more family friendly, or more nasty, as the case may be. So those are the basic types of cards in the game, and I'll show you a few of them now and make some combinations here. Alright, so I kind of randomized these, so I have no idea what's going to come out, but I'll sort of show you. Now, each of the cards has this little pixel guy, and just by coincidence, this is one of the cards that the game gets its name from, which is You Are a Billionaire. Let's go ahead and see if we can't make that a little clearer. But basically, as the name implies, this is one of the cards that the creator got the name from. But each card is going to have the name at the top, which is just like the basic description of the card, then the picture, and then all these little caveats that go along with the perk or the quirk. So it's not just that they are a billionaire, they also will let you use their money, they are okay with being the sole provider, and they aren't obsessed with money. So that's all the good stuff about them, and that is a genuinely good one by most people's opinion. But let's look at their quirk. The quirk is they are a centaur. They have horse-sized genitals. They live hundreds of years. And if you reproduce, you'd have centaur kids. So you as the player, and not the judge, need to know, you need to guess what the judge is going to be okay with here. Do you think the judge would put up with their potential life mate being a centaur if it meant that they were essentially a billionaire and can use all of their money? What's the judge going to do? You need to just figure that out. And you as a judge have to decide and try to be honest about it. Would you date them or not? Let's give another example. They are a professional wrestler. So popular, paid well, and on TV. Doesn't get injured. You can travel with them. Finishing move called Tainted Love. Very, very funny. And that's one of those examples of that could be a good or a bad thing depending on who the judge is, because maybe people don't like wrestling and don't want to date a wrestler, but most people might say, oh, okay, at least he's got a good job. And let's look at the quirk. The quirk is they have 3 nipples. The third nipple is on chest as well. Won't remove nipple. All nipples are normal looking, fully functional, and sensitive. So these are just some varied examples. So that's another decision. Well, maybe that's fine. I mean, a third nipple, that's not such a big deal. Maybe the judge is okay with that, but maybe they hate wrestling. You just have to decide that. Here's a adult-oriented card. You have an orgasm every time they kiss you. Your underwear gets wet. They kiss you a few times a day. And remember, this is a good one, so that might be bad in some circumstances. You just never know. And the quirk is they are 1 year underage. They want to date immediately. They want to be sexually active. Parents okay with your relationship. So you can see where, and I would make the argument that not every card that is supposedly a realistic card and not a mature card is not a mature card. I would say that's kind of a mature card, but I'll show you just one more just to give you some more flavor for the game. Their aura prevents aging. Aura can't be turned off. Every day you are around them, you won't age. They don't age. Aura started when they were 20. Now, this came out in one of the games that we played, and I would argue that there should be a distance here. Is it 25 feet, 5 feet? Anyways. And the quirk is they killed someone in their past. Will never get caught. They won't tell you why they killed. They'll never do it again, and they have remorse. So, are you willing to be with someone who will effectively make you immortal or very long-lived, but they killed someone and they won't tell you why? Well, that's the decision you have to make. Those are the kind of choices you have to make in Billionaire Banshee. Just sort of a ridiculous game. Now, let's get to my final thoughts. You know, because of the fact that I really like Kickstarter and I do a Kickstarter update every week, I'm constantly looking at all the different tabletop gaming projects that are currently running, and I see a ton of Cards Against Humanity clones, which was inevitable, but really most of them just look awful, not fun, total rip-offs of cards without any of the uniqueness and flavor of that original game, and it's just gets to be tiring. And at first blush, you might think the same thing about Billionaire Banshee. After all, it's a body card game made for lots of people with some really risque jokes. But I think you'd be doing a disservice to pass this game over. This is a very, very fun, quirky game. And just like I said in my intro, it's that mix of Say Anything and Cards Against Humanity mechanics that I think sets it apart from either of those two games. Well, let me tell you what I don't like first, just to get that out of the way. The designer made a questionable choice in making the different backs of the cards different. Our guess was that, you know, they're different types. So if you see like a certain creature on the back, then that means it's something having to do with animals. And I don't know. I just think that's not that wasn't a really smart thing. I think it should always be the same card backs. Quirk cards, perk cards, separate. Boom. There you go. Make a really nice back to them. That's a little nitpicky, but I don't know. It bothered me. It's the first thing I noticed. Also, the pixel style art, I'm okay with the pixel art. I'm not totally sick of that yet, although much like Cards Against Humanity clones, you see a ton of pixel art games on Kickstarter nowadays. But I'm okay with that. I just think it should have been more diverse and varied. They have the one little pixel character that's on every single card. Okay, I mean, why not switch it up? I mean, have different male and female characters. And I don't know, I think that some expansion cards that might be on the way if the campaign succeeds are going to have some of those extra things, extra cards and extra art, but in the base game, it's not there. And that kind of leads me into the one real shortcoming that I think there could be in this game, which is that it needs variety. But I think that there is. I think that in the final version of the game, there will be a lot more cards, and there's possible expansions to be unlocked or purchased, so that could solve that problem. And to be fair, Cards Against Humanity had that same problem before they came out with a billion expansions. So I think that if that problem is solved, then that could be a good thing. The rest of the game, though, is really good. What I like most, I think, is that it's fast. I think that Cards Against Humanity, even say anything to a degree, can get really bogged down, especially with cards where you're playing with a lot of people. I played this game 2 times with the maximum allotment of players. 10 people, some people switched out between each game, but the maximum amount of people that I had the cards available for, and I suppose you could even just go up to a ridiculously high amount of players if you had extra cards, like the accept and deny cards. But anyways, even with the maximum amount of players, just go once around the table. 10 people, I mean, it doesn't take very long. It's less than an hour for sure, even with that many people. And it feels fast. I mean, you just flip the card over, read it, think about it for a moment. Everyone else chooses what you want to do. Boom, you're done. I also recommend that our method of play was that everyone else, once everyone's locked in, including the judge, everyone else flips over their cards first to build up suspense, and then you flip over, as the judge, you flip over your cards. So that's just a little thing that we found was kind of cool to do. I like the betting mechanism. I think the betting mechanism could even be retrofitted as house rules if you want, where you could bet even more. We were kind of doing that in our second game, and it worked out well because I actually think this game is a little more competitive than Cards Against Humanity, because in Cards Against Humanity, no one really cares. It's fun to win, and I've won that game a lot, and it sucks, you know, when you don't do well and none of the judges pick any of your cards. But it's really more about the experience. I think that while this game, Billionaire Banshee, is also about the experience, because it goes so fast and because you have that whole betting mechanism that's built right in, I think that it does lend itself to be more competitive, which is cool. That's a nice little takeaway from that. So, and you know, the cards themselves, as far as the humor, I like it. There's definitely some very interesting ones. Some of them are a little uneven, like the one where it definitely seems like some of the perks are not that good, and some of the quirks they're all bad, but some of them are not as bad as others. Although maybe that's just my perception. Maybe I'm a little twisted in some ways. I'm sure that I am. But in any case, they're a little uneven, but they're all at least interesting, which is a good thing, I mean, for a game like this. And I would be very eager to see what the expansion cards are. So, final opinion, I don't think it's a fantastic game by any means. I mean, if you're perfectly okay and haven't gotten burned out on Cards Against Humanity or Say Anything or any other type of those party games, then maybe this is not one that you'll be dying to get. But I think that if you are looking for a change of pace, if you want something that's definitely quirky, again, no pun intended, this is something that should be on your radar. It's definitely one that I'd like to see expanded and improved upon, but there's a potential for there to be a really great game here, and it's definitely something you should try out if you're into that sense of humor. So check it out. You know, you can't go wrong, really. So my name is Nick. This has been Board Game Brawl, and I'm reminding you to get out there and game every day in every way. Take care.